Some of the foods that kept our ancestors alive could also kill them. These were not spoiled meals or rare accidents. They were foods people gathered on purpose, prepared with care, and in some cases still eat today. The danger in them never went away. What changed is us. People who had no word for poison worked out how to eat things that could stop a heart, rot a limb, or lock the legs for life. These are 5 of them, and a few are still sitting on shelves right now. Number 5. The honey that took down an army. In the spring of 401 BC, 10,000 Greek mercenaries marching home along the southern shore of the Black Sea raided some wild beehives and ate the comb. Their commander, Xenophon, wrote down what happened. The men who ate the honey went out of their senses. They vomited and collapsed. The ones who ate a little seemed badly drunk. The ones who ate a lot behaved like madmen, and some like the dying. They lay scattered across the ground, he wrote, as if the army had lost a battle. 3 or 4 days later, they got up and marched on. No one died. The honey was not spoiled. On that coast, the bees feed on wild rhododendron, whose nectar carries compounds called granotoxins. They jam open the sodium channels that nerve and muscle cells use to fire, so blood pressure drops, the pulse slows, and the senses scramble. It can arrive slowly, long enough to finish the whole comb before the first dizziness lands. The locals had a name for it, mad honey, and they knew how to weaponize it. Centuries later, hostile tribes on the same shore left combs of it along a road for marching Roman soldiers who ate it, lost their senses, and were cut down where they lay. None of this stayed in the past. On the Turkish Black Sea coast, mad honey is still made and sold on purpose, taken by the spoonful as a folk remedy. Every year, it puts people in hospital with their hearts crawling near 40 beats a minute. It comes from flowers, it looks exactly like breakfast, and in the wrong valley, it can slow a grown man's heart until the room goes dark. Number 4. The flesh they buried to rot. Fermenting flesh to preserve it is one of the deepest food technologies we own. On a lakeshore in southern Sweden, people left fish to rot in a sealed trench 9,000 years ago, older than farming itself. In the far north, it took forms that are hard to describe without flinching. In Greenland, hundreds of small seabirds are packed whole into the hollowed, fat-lined skin of a seal. The air is pressed out, the skin is sewn shut and sealed with grease, and the whole mass is buried under stones for months. When it is opened in deep winter, the birds have softened into something pungent and half-liquid, and it is eaten as it is. The problem is that this is also a precise recipe for the deadliest poison in the natural world. The bacterium behind botulism lives in soil almost everywhere, harmless while dormant. But give it an airless, low-acid pocket of decaying animal tissue, and it wakes up and manufactures botulinum toxin, whose lethal dose is measured in billionths of a gram. It attacks the nerves that fire the muscles, until breathing itself goes still and the victim suffocates, fully awake, inside a body that has quietly switched off. And this is the trap. The airless dark that preserves the seal's birds through winter is the exact condition the bacterium needs to bloom. Preservation and poison are the same process, and which one you get depends on details no cook could ever see, like a trace of the wrong bacterium, a burial that was not quite airless, or a season a few degrees too warm. The food is safe 100 times, 1,000 times. Then one quiet year, it is not. Number 3. The fish that offers no second try. In the ancient shell mounds of Japan, archaeologists keep finding the bones of pufferfish. People here were eating one of the most dangerous animals ever put on a plate, deep in prehistory. The puffer carries tetrodotoxin. By weight, it is commonly reckoned more than 1,000 times deadlier than cyanide, and unlike cyanide, it has no antidote at all. A single fish can hold enough to kill several adults. If the mad honey jammed the body's sodium channels open, this does the reverse. It slams them shut so the nerves cannot fire at all. The paralysis climbs from the fingers and the lips inward, and the cruelty is that it does not touch the mind. The victim stays fully awake and aware, unable to move, unable to speak, unable at last to breathe. The poison does not even come from the fish. It is built by bacteria, and the puffer banks it from what it eats, so it is baked into the flesh and organs. It cannot be rinsed off or cooked away. Boil it, grill it, freeze it for a year, and it is exactly as lethal as the day the fish left the sea. The shell mounds prove people ate puffer fish. They do not prove people knew how to eat it safely. Preparing it takes exact anatomical knowledge, cutting away the precise organs where the poison hides without nicking a single one. And some of those prehistoric meals may have been the last their eaters ever had. It is still eaten as fugu today, and a handful of people still die in a typical year, almost all of them having prepared it at home and gotten a single cut wrong. Number 2. the organ they were warned never to eat. William Barents and his crew had been trapped in the Arctic for months. It was the winter of 1596, and the expedition was stranded on the frozen edge of Nova Zembla in a driftwood hut. Desperate for food, they killed a polar bear, and some of the men ate its liver. Within hours, they were gravely ill. In the account left by one of the crew, their skin came off, peeling away in sheets from the feet upward. They expected to die, but they lived. And they had just recorded, for the first time in European writing, something the peoples of the Arctic had known to avoid for thousands of years. The poison is not exotic, it is vitamin A. Animals at the top of the Arctic food chain store it in their livers at concentrations found nowhere else, and a single ordinary serving of polar bear liver can deliver hundreds of times the amount a person can safely take in a day. A sudden flood of it raises the pressure inside the skull, turns the stomach, and makes the skin die and slough away. Heat does not destroy it. The people who got poisoned were the outsiders. The ones who had lived in the Arctic for thousands of years did not. They carried a simple, absolute rule. You do not eat the liver of the polar bear. No one among them could have named vitamin A or the pressure it raises in the skull. They did not need to. The knowledge had been compressed into a prohibition, handed down the generations, doing its protective work without a word of chemistry attached. Some of the most important survival knowledge our ancestors had did not come as a recipe. It came as a refusal, a hard line drawn around a food that looked perfectly good and would sicken or kill, learned at a cost paid by someone long ago and remembered by everyone since. Number 1. Cassava. Hans Rosling had been a young district doctor in northern Mozambique for only a short time when the paralysis arrived. It was 1981, a poor rural region, a hungry season. People who had been walking days earlier were suddenly being carried to him, their legs stiffened and locked, and they would never move normally again. There were hundreds of them, overwhelmingly children and young mothers. The local people already had a name for it. Konzo. It means tied legs. The cause was on every plate. Cassava, the thick starchy root that feeds hundreds of millions of people as a primary source of calories across Africa, South America, and Asia. Bitter cassava contains a compound that releases hydrogen cyanide when the root is broken. The body can diffuse a certain amount of cyanide, but only by spending sulfur drawn from protein in the diet. In drought and famine, families ate cassava rushed through its cleaning to save time, and they ate almost nothing else. There was no protein to spare, so the cyanide went undiffused and struck down the long nerves that carry movement to the legs. The damage is permanent. Now go back to the beginning of this root. Cassava was domesticated in the Amazon around 10,000 years ago. Those ancient Amazonians were growing a plant that could cripple them, and they had already worked out how to strip the poison from it. With no idea that cyanide existed, they grated the root to a wet pulp, packed it into a long woven tube, pulled it tight so it squeezed like a finger trap, and wrung the poison out. What was left they toasted into flatbread, a lethal chemistry problem solved by process alone, thousands of years before there was any such thing as chemistry. And this is why cassava sits at the top of this list. Its danger never became history. It feeds hundreds of millions of people today, carrying the same poison it carried 10,000 years ago, made safe by the same ancient procedure and nothing else. Konzo has not stopped. It still strikes in Central Africa under the exact conditions Rosling identified: drought, war, and hunger. The moments when frightened families shortcut the very processing that keeps the root safe, at the moment they depend on it most. And the paralysis still falls on the children. That long chain of grating and pressing and toasting is the oldest food safety knowledge our species ever worked out. It is still the only thing standing between more than 1 billion daily meals and a cyanide poisoning. The same thing runs through all 5 of these foods. They have not changed. What protected people was never the food itself. It was the knowledge of how to handle it, carried from one person to the next as a process, a skill, or a refusal. We did not outgrow these dangers. We inherited the answers to them. And an answer only survives as long as someone remembers to pass it on. If you want more stories like this one, there is another on screen right now.